Friends, welcome to my workplace at Ranaghat, West Bengal, India. This is a hard cataract, and in this case we have decided to do SICS, that is small incision cataract surgery. This is superior rectus bridle suture. The eyeball is turned down by a muscle hook, and the superior rectus is held by a superior rectus holding forceps, and this bridle suture is passed. And now conjunctival peritomy is to be done. Before that, we are going to do a thorough irrigation of the ocular surface applying this povidone iodine. This is a very important step. Povidone iodine 5% is applied, and the ocular surface is irrigated nicely by ringer lactate or BSS. And now conjunctival peritomy is to be done. In this case, we have decided to do a 8 mm incision because, as you can see, the cataract is hard and it looks brown. FLACS emulsification can be done in this case. This is a teaching video to teach SICS to residents. So conjunctival peritomy has been done. Now let us see if we can do a tunnel without cautery. Yes, it can be done, and I learned these from Dr. Deepak Meghur. Just ask your assistant to irrigate. Within 3-4 minutes, this bleeding will stop, but it need not stop. Just continue. Ask your assistant to keep irrigating, and you keep doing what you want to do. In this case, a tunnel is being made. The important thing is the corneal valve. We must go at least 1.5 mm into clear cornea to get a nice corneal valve to have a self-sealing wound. So it is not important to go very far from the limbus. It can be just 1.5 mm behind the limbus, and if you go into clear cornea for about 1.5 to 2 mm, you will get a very nice corneal valve and you will get a self-sealing wound. This is a stab incision, and this is another stab incision. I want to use this stab incision for implanting the IOL under irrigation. This is an air bubble. Beneath this air bubble, trypan blue 0.06% dye is applied over the anterior surface of the cataractous lens. The anterior capsule gets stained. After a few seconds, the dye is washed out. It is always better to apply the dye underneath an air bubble. And now the dye is washed out, and then 2% SPMC is applied. The antechamber is filled up with the viscoelastic substance. Now see rhexis with needle. A large flap is raised, and this flap is flipped, and it is guided all around to get a large round rhexis. In this case, the rexis is being made large because the cataract, the nucleus is quite hard. So we have got a round and large rexis. And now my plan is to open the tunnel and then do hydrodissection. So I take the keratom, ask the assistant to irrigate. Still there is some bleeding, but it will stop after some time. So I go into the anterior limit of the tunnel and then open the internal aspect of the tunnel. So the sclerocorneal tunnel is done. And now hydrodissection, see what happens. Since the rexis is large, just by hydro, the nucleus prolapses into the anterior chamber. And now Visco is applied both in front and behind the lens mass. And now I use these irrigating vectors. It is attached to a bottle. I hold the superior rectus suture and the irrigating vectors go in and depresses the posterior lip of the main wound, and the nucleus gets delivered very smoothly. There is some bleeding from the right corner of the wound, and there is some hyphema at this moment, but it will stop. Since we have not done cautery, we just have to tolerate this bleeding. And now this is removal of cortical matter. This is irrigation, and now I start aspirating. Aspiration of cortex is being carried out by this 23G Simcoe cannula. The left side port is small, so I go through the right side port and aspirate the cortex from 2 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Yes, it is very easy to remove cortex by the Simcoe cannula. And now I go through the main wound and I find that there is some cortex at 12 o'clock. So I go again and remove that cortex. Yes, now I take a irrigating probe, attach it to a bottle and keep the antechamber formed by irrigation and implant the IOL in the bag under irrigation. The advantage is the time which is required to remove visco is not spent, since the lens has been implanted under irrigation. Since there is no visco, so a lot of time is saved. Yes, the lens is in the bag. And now we are towards the end of the surgery. The side ports are closed by corneal stromal hydration. This is bit of moxifloxacin, and now the side ports are closed by hydrating corneal stroma on either side of these stab wounds. All the wounds must be nicely closed. There should not be any leaking wound. And now, this is the final lavage of the anterior chamber. This is 23G Simcoe and this is BS's. Now form the antechamber very nicely like this, and we can see that all the bleeding has stopped by this time. The antechamber is nicely formed, and now intraocular pressure is felt, it is normal, and now the conjunctiva has to be opposed to the limbus. So this is subconjunctival injection of gentamicin and dexamethasone. By this injection, the conjunctiva swells up and moves to the limbus. The superior rectus bridle suture is removed. The drapes are removed. This is MOXIE. Conjunctiva is nicely opposed to the limbus and the case is concluded. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope this video will help you in developing your surgical skills, particularly to learn SICS, that is small incision cataract surgery. Be a comprehensive cataract surgeon and serve your patients with love, respect, empathy, and great surgical competence.